Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure, coming to you from Waikiki Beach. We're right here next to St. Augustine's Catholic Church by the sea. The altar is just right below me, right next to our house. So, if you ever come to Waikiki, maybe we'll see you at morning mass. If you see us, let us know. We'll go across the street, get a cup of coffee. But welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. We'll be right back with our guest Bobby Angel, and his newest book, The Postmodern Predicament. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Kickstart that engine and roll thunder with the pack. Explore the grittiness of manly spirituality. Gain traction in the virtues. Soup up your spiritual engine by turning adversity into adventure. Now here's Bear Woznick. Let's ride.
Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. You know, Cindy and I, we love the ocean and we love to sail. We have our boat, the Spirit of Adventure, in the Virgin Islands, out there in the Caribbean. We like the Virgin Islands because it's great sailing and it's rather protected waters. You can almost always find a safe harbor. We've been there when the conditions have been 30, 40 knot winds. And believe me, that's not pleasant to live in those kind of conditions for several days. But you know what we do? When we know there's a high wind and seas coming, we know certain harbors that are very safe. And we go there and we don't trust in the mooring balls. We make sure we trust in our anchor. And we drop that anchor and we make sure that she holds. I dive down, check it out to make sure the ocean that anchor is dragging a lot of chain and that it's gone deep into the sand and that it's secure. But it seems to me in our modern life that so many people have lost a sense of where that safe harbor is, is their anchor. And I'm reminded of Nietzsche. Man, what a great writer, what a gift of writing, a gift of communication, but so sadly, the way it was used. I can't paraphrase him right, but in his quotation where he says, God is dead and we have killed him, he talks about a universe that is spinning out of control, that has no anchor. There's no truth. There's no person who is a truth to latch onto. When we're in those conditions, I remember a couple years ago, the wind howled for several days. It was so much that we couldn't take our dinghy to the beach. We were just on our boat. But that's where we all are, everybody. We're on that bark of Peter. We're on the boat of the Catholic Church, and we need to know where to lay our anchor. And that, to me, that's the writings of Aquinas and Augustine and the beautiful. If you read through the Catechism, it points to all different places and sources to go and to read. We have as our guest today, Bobby Angel, who's talking about a world that's lost its anchor, that seems to have slipped away from its safe harbor, which is, boats aren't meant to be in harbors, they're meant to sail, but we always need to know where home is, and we need to know where truth is and live in that truth. So we have with our guest, Bobby Angel. Welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure, Bobby.
Thank you so much for having me. I love all of the nautical metaphors. I grew up in St. Pete, Tampa Bay area, so I love the water and all this stuff is hitting my heart. So it's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, I love looking at those of you who are listening to EWTN. You can also go to our YouTube channel, Bear Woznick YouTube channel, and you can watch this video. And we send it out, by the way, every Saturday morning if people subscribe to our email newsletter. But it's so cool. What I see behind Bobby is two different types of guitars. They're all steel guitars, right? There's no nylon string guitars there. Three
Correct.
guitars.
hmm
And then I see Catholic icons on one side, and then I see a wall of books. I don't know how far that wall goes, but yeah, it tells you just a lot about you just by looking at that. Can you tell us a little bit your story, your journey with the Lord before we start digging into this book, The Postmodern Predicament?
Yeah, totally. So cradle Catholic, born and raised in the church. Grew up just thinking it was a box to check, a nice thing to do. And it wasn't until late in high school that I had a really dramatic conversion to the faith of just the reality of this is really real. It's not a legend. It's not a fairy tale. It's not just these nice stories we tell each other every time we go around the sun. It really happened. And college for me was a long process of just diving in and getting super involved in the Newman Center across the street from the University of Florida. reading Scott Hahn in the cafeteria, wanting to know like why do we believe what we believe, and wrestling with the question of the priesthood for the first time in my life. I said I like girls a whole lot, so I don't know how this would work. And trying to date and be normal, but also feeling this magnet on my heart to consider the priesthood. And I ran away from God a bit. I worked as a firefighter briefly after college before finally saying yes to go to the seminary, not the cemetery, but the seminary, to discern and ask the question, Lord, are you actually calling me to be a priest? And I spent 3 years in formation, and it was tough, but it was a lot of work the Lord did in my heart, and met some amazing guys who I'm still friends with to this day. But in that third year, I really felt the call to marriage. And I feel like, okay, I said yes to Jesus, and this was for a reason, but I really believe my place will be in marriage. Mother Teresa said, when you pray, be specific. So I prayed for a sign that was loud and blonde and something I couldn't miss. And
Yeah.
re-met the woman who became my wife, Jackie. She's in California, so she's a Orange County girl. And like any rational man, I drove across country for a woman. And but it was just like when you know, you know. And for most of my
Mhm.
20s, banging my head against the wall, wanting to do God's will, but not having a clue what it was, or at least not
Yeah,
having the deep
right.
piece of it.
Yeah.
And like when it all kind of clicks and God takes the scales down, it's like finally you're ready. Like you're not ready before, you're trying to grasp, you're trying to work it on your timeline. Just receive, let go, and trust me. And when it happened, it happened.
Mhm.
And I was blessed to work for almost a decade at an all boys Catholic high school. Now we live in Dallas, Texas. We have a traveling speaking ministry. We've worked with Ascension Press for a number of years, doing videos on YouTube. We have 5 crazy, wonderful children on earth, 3 in heaven.
Mhm.
And I love writing. So in my non-existent free time, and as the Lord puts projects on my heart or on my desk, I love writing.
Do you know what your next three books are already?
I know what the next one is, and after that, it's a wide open, beautiful desert of like I got nothing.
I think every guy, if I had my choice, I would go to discern the priesthood and spend 3 years in the seminary
I
and
mean,
then get married. I mean, what a great experience that must be. And
my wife,
formation.
my wife Jackie has strong opinions on that. Like, if only in the Catholic Church we had something like that. Like, you had to go and get your act together and die to yourself. One of the classes we took was pastoral counseling, but virtually the whole first semester was active listening. So a classroom of men teaching them how to listen.
Yeah,
The,
that's the one thing your wife is hoping that you might have majored in, right? Is listening.
the comedy wrote itself. We're like, surely we're going to learn how to fix people. And they're like, no, you don't. You got to listen. They're like, this is ridiculous.
That's so funny. You know, my wife, she is so soft spoken. And I'm so into her, so totally digging on her. Whatever she speaks, I want to listen, but then I want to engage and communicate. And then she'll wait and she'll look at me and then she'll get quiet and then she'll say, I'm still speaking like that, and let me know, to continue. But I went through that season in my life too of I actually really wanted to be married and I wanted to be a father, really wanted to experience that. I had an epiphany when I was a junior in high school. But then in my college years, I really had a deep conversion experience. I was raised Catholic, but everyone around me said, "Oh, you should be a priest." And so I had a real difficulty because I really wanted to be married, but I really wanted to do God's will. And so I remember at one point I fasted and prayed for 7 days, and without eating, I drank water, of course, and then went to a monastery and for a retreat. And my roommate, who I hadn't met, came in later after I was in my room, and I was just anguishing on my bed. God, it's so hard. I mean, I really I want to obey your will. And like you said, well, but what is your will, God? Whatever it is, you let me know. And this young man came in. He's a Franciscan. He became a Franciscan later on. This was a Benedictine monastery. And he knelt by his bed across the room and he just said, Lord, I love you and I give you my life. He just said that again and again and again. And finally, I just said, Lord, as hard as it is to serve you, it's harder not to. So what your will be done. And so there is that time in our life when we fall in love with Jesus, but we always like to call him Lord. for some reason until he says, "Oh, am I?" You know,
Mm.
and there's that beautiful time of yielding. So that death of the vision, the death and then the resurrection of that vision, and you meet your beautiful wife, Jackie, and now 5 children here and 3 in heaven.
Yeah. And nothing is wasted. Here, and this is why my wife and I we come out of different youth ministry backgrounds. We love ministering to college students and young adults who are having these questions and wrestling with these underlying currents of meaning. And I want to do something that matters, and I want to be useful, and I don't want to miss God's will for my life and how, you know, I've been there, done that. And I know the pain, I know the agony of it, and I also know it's worth the wait. It's worth trusting in his plan. And
And we got to take a hard break.
yeah,
And you know, and it's getting it's preparing too. I remember praying then uh for my wife, who I'd never met, praying for her daily, you know. So it really is a process and a journey. We're talking with Bobby Angel. We're going to dig into his newest book, The Postmodern Predicament, and around and a roadmap for recovery and restoration. That's what's important. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick adventure. Schoolofmanliness.com is a place for men of grit and grace to join together to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge each other to grow in manly virtue. Members receive morning man meditations, a monthly curriculum that is rich with audio, video, and written content, and a trail guide to help you map out your new trajectory. Many of our members lead their sons through this same curriculum. Your membership gives you access to both the Man Cave, which is our non-Facebook type community, and the School of Manliness at schoolofmanliness.com. Become a member at schoolofmanliness.com. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Woznick adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Woznick adventure possible. My newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone?, has hit the top 5 in Christian books for a good reason. It's because men are searching for traction and a trail guide to live out the unique calling and the gifts that they were born with, that each man individually is factory loaded with by God. Paul said, "Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, do all things in love." Finally, here is a book that talks with men the way men talk with each other. Just plain old straight shooting. By the way, Mama Bears, this is your chance to get this message to your men. Go to schoolofmanliness.com or anywhere books are sold. 12 Rules for Manliness. Where have all the cowboys gone? Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness. Where have all the cowboys gone? The world needs a man who will keep his word. You know, don't easily trust a man again who has broken his word to you. But if you give him a second chance, encourage him to be truthful and a man of his word, and inspect what you expect. As John Wayne once said, every man deserves a second chance, but keep a strong eye on him. The world needs men right now to be cowboys, to be a man who keeps his word. In fact, a man who is a man of the word, a man who keeps his word and knows God's word.
This is a warning. The Bear Woznick adventure is dangerous. The radical change Bear challenges you to is not for wimps. Change this station now to a soft rock station before it's too late. You've been warned. Now, here is Bear Woznick.
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Woznick Adventure. You know, we call it the Bear Woznick Adventure because each of us is on an adventure. And my one of my favorite authors, Louis L'Amour, I have 105 of his Western novels. I always taught on classical virtue uh, in his Westerns. He said adventure is just a romantic notion of a journey where everything went wrong. And that's part of our life experience is trying to find that path that the Lord has for us and yielding to it. My own personal creed is that the most radical quest a man can have in his life is to abandon himself to the wild adventure of God's will. And that's the story, Bobby, that you're basically talking about saying, I will say yes to you, Lord, but what is your will?
Well, it's having eyes wide open to what is before
Mm,
us and where the doors are opening. John Paul II said life with Christ is a great adventure. And I think some
he did.
people, yeah, some people roll their eyes at like all this language of like journey and adventure and all these metaphors, but it speaks to the human heart for a reason.
You know what
You
it is?
know,
It's like,
it's because
yeah,
the
go ahead.
alternative is just meh, despair, just figure it out, just muscle through it. It's like, what if you actually were caught up in a great story that has a
Amen.
direction and meaning and purpose, and it's not just fluff? What if, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's like also when you're abandoned to God's will, you get to see God do stuff. You know, you're on an adventure and it's against all odds, and then it's the David and Goliath every other day almost in your life, and then God shows up and you get to see God move. I mean, how cool is that to see the Lord call you to do something, but he always calls you to something bigger than you can do by himself, and so he has to be right there with you, and he challenges you. I wanted to talk about this more at the end of the show because I want to talk about the book, The Postmodern Predicament. But I think we're here right now. Let's just talk story about that. You actually have a ministry of, I think it would be a ministry of mentorship, or what is it? What are you doing in that area of your life? Clue us into that before we get into your book.
Totally. I never ever thought I'd be in the world of mental health. It kind of found me through the back door. I've been friends with Dr. Greg Bottaro for a number of years, who works with he and his colleagues at the Catholic Psych Institute. And he invited me to be part of this guinea pig program of let's figure out how to help people in a way outside of the traditional psychotherapy model. Like, how would Jesus do it? Well, he would accompany people. He would walk with people daily, not just, okay, come back in 3 weeks and remember everything that's been going on in your life. And in a way that we can also help people in a solid Catholic Orthodox way that doesn't just try to fly under the radar of a secular atheistic model of psychotherapy. So at the Catholic Psych Institute, they're calling it this model of applied personalism. So we don't call
Wow.
ourselves therapists or counselors, we're mentors. I was blessed to go through this training. So on top of the speaking and media ministry my wife and I do, I've been blessed to mentor people, which is a blend of psychotherapy and spiritual direction in this way you help people around the world because the model is not real time like this phone call, or it's not you drive across town to my office. It's via these voice memos. So it's not real time. It's like you send me a voice memo, I get back to you within 24 hours.
That's so cool.
So I mean, yeah, it takes the time zone difference out of the equation. It's kind of new, it's kind of different. So there's a little bit of a figuring it out the first couple days, but then you kind of settle in and like I'm still heard, and someone's walking with me in my experience and my questions and my pain, either locally or halfway around the world, in a way that like we're not afraid to bring God into the conversation or our faith into the room, recognizing all the wires touch in what it means to be a human person, like your biology, your health, your nutrition, your your wounds, like what your family upbringing was like. And it's been really life changing for me to go through the program and now do this as an extension of the ministry I already love doing. It's like I love the classroom. I love being a core member in youth ministry programs, and this is just another thing I could not imagine God inviting me into.
That's so cool. Yeah. So how, if someone wants to reach out and work with you directly, how can they do that? They want to go through that. A
Um,
website or something they go through?
yeah, you can go to, and if I was smart, I would have had this ready. It's um, catholicsite.com/Bobby if they wanted me directly, but there's a whole lot of my colleagues and classmates who are amazing at this work. And my wife and I,
Yeah.
our personal website is jackieandbobby.com, where there's more info about this as well as our other videos and books and stuff.
How do you spell Jackie?
JACKIE.
JackieandBobby.com. How cool. Oh, so I was once at EWTN. We were talking about this off air before we started, how I've been to Father Mitch's house and he's got a wall of animal heads, kind of, and he's got walls and walls of books, as I see you have behind you. But I was staying at a house a couple houses up from him there on the grounds, and there was a book there on personalism. And I'd always
Mhm.
heard that John Paul II was a personalist. Is that and I tried to read the book and I couldn't quite understand it. What is personalism for our hearers? And then we're going to use that as a segue into your book, The Postmodern Predicament.
No, it's a great segue into philosophy. John Paul II was a philosopher. He was a poet. He was an athlete. He was this Renaissance man, and was such a deep thinker. He's hard to read. Like there's Pope Benedict, in my opinion, is easier to just pick up and go. John Paul is this. He's a romantic. He's a philosopher. He writes in circles sometimes, and um, but his thought is so rich. And so
Yes.
when you think about, okay, ideas have consequences. Like this is why philosophy matters.
Mm,
Why to look at the culture we live in is very different than 100 years ago, which is very different than 500 years ago, which is very different than 2000 years ago. And what are our ideas about the human person? And you see everywhere this utilitarianism, what is utility, what is useful, prevailing. It's like if the human person is useful, they have value. If they don't, maybe we should get rid of them.
mm,
From the unborn to the elderly to anyone who's in between who's lost their value,
mhm,
like that's a philosophy that's taken root. Personalism recognizes you are an unrepeatable human person. Like you're not an
mm,
object to be used. You're not valued based on what you can offer. Your value is not on your weaknesses and failures. There's a unique, unrepeatable mystery about you, the person. And so that requires reverence. That requires a posture of humility that I come to you with.
mm,
So it's recognizing too the body soul dynamic, the mind and spirit mess that we are. It's not just this platonic. The goal is to escape the body and like escape this shell, which I call the Bugs Bunny view of theology. It's the anvil falls on us, the spirit goes away and plays
oh
the
yeah, I
harp.
remember that. Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of people think like, well, that's heaven. And it's like, no, no, I believe in the resurrection of the body and life everlasting. We mumble through it with the creed every Sunday. We're saying like,
Gnarly. It's a
I,
gnarly statement.
yeah, it's like you get your body back in a glorified, redeemed way that we can't really imagine because
I'll be able,
Jesus,
I'll, I'll be able to golf better, do you think?
hopefully, you never know.
Well, there can't be any
Jesus,
cuss word. There can't be any cuss words in heaven, so we got to be better golfers.
at least better etiquette,
This is
golfers.
my Peter Kraft version of Aquinas. We'll
Oh,
see. We're talking with Bobby Angel in his book, The Postmodern Predicament. Let's introduce that subject before we take our next break. If there was a postmodern, there must be a modern. If there was modern, there must have been something before that. Can you give us the bird's eye view of the scope of the book?
so here's where, because of my priesthood journey, I was given the a quick education in philosophy, which was confusing because the guys are like, why are we learning philosophy as we start seminary? We're here to baptize babies and forgive sins. It's like, we got to understand what it means to be human. We got to understand these human questions before we get to the divine revelation. Before we and you're learning some of these things in conjunction, but the Catholic Church has this robust history of philosophy being honored as the handmaiden to theology. And so we're deep diving into Plato and Aristotle and Socrates as recognizing the ancients. There's four big stages of philosophy. There's ancient, medieval, modern, and what we're living in right now is postmodernity, the postmodern time period.
I know the Greek fathers loved Aristotle and Socrates and Plato. I think they referred to, I think, Aristotle as Saint Aristotle, and
Hmm.
of course Aquinas just calls him the philosopher.
Right.
And I had that same question in my mind. Why do Catholic priests first have to learn all this philosophy? But it was because of so much of the Greek way of thinking that we were able to understand, the nature of Jesus Christ, the nature of God, the Trinity and things like that. So it's so natural. God gave us our mind for a reason. So let's bring the revealed truth of God and the ability to reason together. So we'll talk more about Bobby Angel's newest book, The Postmodern Predicament, and a roadmap for recovery and restoration. Nehemiah's come into the house. He's going to come back and rebuild the walls. We'll be right back. Go to schoolofmanliness.com and subscribe to our weekly email to receive video YouTube links of the Bear Woznick radio show, as well as the Spirit of Adventure with Bear and Cindy TV show, which, by the way, is filmed in the tropics, as well as our manly evangelistic YouTube shorts. Go to schoolofmanliness.com.
Be the kind of man that when he gets out of bed in the morning, the devil says, "Oh no, he's up." Go to deepadventure.com and invite Bear to speak.
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Our guest today is Bobby Angel, his book, The Postmodern Predicament. We want to invite you, men, to go to schoolofmanliness.com. It's just a great site because we have such great people that are members. We have two elements to our site. One is the Man Cave community. It's a non-Facebook community, but in there we share inspirational things. We share things that are kind of gritty. Maybe we wouldn't want to share with too many people. It's really the place where you will find grit and grace, where those two come together. Men sharing with each other our needs, our needs for prayer, our places where we're confused and need help, but we also have just a real enlivened community. It's interesting. We have men of all ages there. Recently we had two new bull riders join the man cave, younger men, and then we have older men too, because the older men need to counsel the younger men, and the younger men need to inspire the older men. So we have all that together, and then apart from that, there's the School of Manliness, which is about a 3-year curriculum, monthly curriculum, and we go through each of these months of curriculum together. So first Saturday of every month, you get a special email, not what subscribers get who subscribe to our email, but a special email just to members of the Man Cave. This is this week's portion of this month's subject. For example, a man needs to be dangerous, may be the subject, and then what this week's we may have a teaching from Father Bryce Lundgren, the Catholic cowboy priest, or something from one of my books. But we have these different things you'll do that week. And what we really love about it is the men can have a password for their sons, not to the man cave, but to the school, so the fathers can lead their sons to the school. So it's pretty cool what's evolving there, what's growing there. But we have a guest with us today, Bobby Angel. I mean, Bobby. I love what you're doing. What is what is the counseling? You don't call it counseling; it's mentoring. What do you call that? What is that site?
We call it mentorship, and you can go to catholicpsych.com and figure out
Yeah,
more about the program. You'll see different testimonials, how it works.
yeah,
It's a walking with, So again, if there's more spiritual matters on your heart, if there's questions of addiction or habits that are weighing you down, it's like there's room for all of it to be discussed. God and
yeah.
religion aren't bracketed away from it.
Right. Yeah, it's all the big so yeah, we need to send people to you. It's just I'm just so impressed by that. So the postmodern predicament, go ahead and dig into the deep dive into this newest book you have, the postmodern predicament.
So yeah, my seminary journey, we start out learning philosophy, and one of the first documents we read was Pope John Paul II's encyclical Faith and Reason, Fides et Ratio. And there you see the master pope philosopher bringing together the fact that like faith and reason are like two wings of a bird, and we need both. Like religion, faith without reason, without our intellect, becomes superstition. And reason with and philosophy without faith and morality quickly just kind of becomes this wasteland of my will, and it's all a power play. So you're seeing that play out today, the fruits of it. And so, there's four main philosophy time periods. The ancient time period, which is in Western um, civilization history. It's Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and the rise of thinking.
Yes, stop right there. Isn't that amazing that that took place? About 500 BC, they were smart, you know, and it was just an amazing time period. And then you correspond that to the Bible, the book of Sirach, very much in the book of wisdom, very similar to that type of thinking
Mm.
that was taking place. And some people say that we needed that Greek thought as part of the paving the way for the gospel, the truth of the gospel.
Oh, God knows what he's doing when he's writing with all this. It's not like randomly this stuff is going on across, the Mediterranean. So, yeah, you see this inkling for the divine written in human nature that comes out in all sorts of different forms and all different worship. But this sense of wonder in the cosmos, and there is some kind of order out there that I need to change my life towards.
One of the things I was thinking, it was just like a flashing, that wasn't a real thing, but I saw the word categories
Mhm.
like this in the sky in front of me. It wasn't really like a revelation or anything like that, just like categories, Aristotle. This is the time in our life when people are throwing away the categories. Words mean nothing. My book, 12 Rules for Manliness, isn't called 12 Rules for Masculinity for a reason. Because that word, that category has been co-opted to mean whatever you want it to mean. In this world today, we just throwing out definitions, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. In your book, you talk about this, the throwing out of the past. We've lost our talk to us about that.
Well, that's part of the method of the madness is words mean nothing. Like that's part of the postmodern anarchy is that instead of I'm conforming my life for the happiest version of my life to something outside of me, reality, beatitudes, commandments, some kind of objective moral standard of living that is tried and true, it's that I turn the camera back on me. What do I want to do? What do I say masculinity is? What do I say what a woman is? What do I say what good is? And it's a thing, it's a temptation as old as Adam. Did God really say, ye shall be as gods? But what we're seeing it played out now just on a cultural scale is how, some would say like, and I try in the book to be very pastoral. Like I'm not out to demonize any of these figures in history. We could bracket Karl Marx aside, but like Descartes thought he was doing something good when he's trying to formulate, I think, therefore I am, and trying to create certainty in a very uncertain era of time and world history.
Well, but didn't he
Like
kind of throw out everything that came before him and just said, we're going to start over?
in the hope of, I'm going to rebuild certainty, including certainty to God. The problem is he kind of dug himself into a pit of, I know I exist. I'm certain of that. Uh-oh. But I can't really be certain of anything else. So, and it doesn't, like culture doesn't change overnight, but what you have is the slow turn now from I'm conforming to myself to something outside of me to now outside needs to conform to me. The shift from the objective to the radical subjective, which again, it takes a few centuries, but here we are today in the selfie era of I create my world and my values. I say what's good, what's true. And so you hear this, and my eye twitches a bit every time when I hear like, I'm so glad you found your truth. Or like,
it's not an eye twitch, man. It's not, I just go, truth is truth. I think we went through a process, back in the days when we were Earth centric. We thought the universe revolved around the Earth, and then we became heliocentric, where it revolved around the sun. And now I think it's like, oh no, the universe revolves around me.
No, but it's like not in jest, like it really is. And you see also one of the most anxious and depressed generations known to man because that seems freeing and intoxicating. You're the center of attention all the time. You get to make up what's good and evil. You get to say what's a man or a woman. But then you realize, like, what a terrible, terrible burden.
And
You've
think
got to
about this,
construct reality. You've got to make, and everyone, this is what Pope Benedict XVI was foreshadowing when he said, we've got a dictatorship of relativism on the horizon.
and you think about Protestantism, where basically everybody is their own pope. Everyone gets to decide what the Bible means, uh, to them. And I think about this too in the campuses. They talk about the safe place.
Hmm.
Uh, I need to go to a safe place where I'm not confronted with these things that are counter to what I think. And I'm thinking, how safe is that place going to be when it's in hell?
Mm.
I mean, that safe place isn't safe at all. It's actually just a little anteroom to hell. Because when you shelter yourself from truth, you eventually end up in hell. It's not a safe place at all. It's a very dangerous place.
Well, a few things there too. One, it's so infantilizing. It like keeps you an infant to just be like, like you're not creating resilience in encountering, like refusing to encounter new ideas. Two, on a university, which is like universalis, like you should be confronting all ideas, good and bad. And then three, wouldn't you want to test yourself up against the ideas to make sure you're believing in the right ones, not staying in the cocoon of what just makes my worldview comfortable? But this is where we are today.
It's
This is
Starbucks
why
Jesus, right? Whatever frappe you like best, that suits you, right? We're talking with Bobby Angel, his new book, The Postmodern Predicament, and I love this. What inspired this picture? I mean, what does this picture on the wall, a painting on this wall, the cover of the book, say to you?
well, exactly.
And people will pay $1 million for that picture. If I describe it, it's a picture of all different colors, scribbles really, and someone will probably pay $2 million for that. I'm sorry, I went to one modern art museum in my life, Bobby, and maybe it was just a bad experience for me, but it was in Minneapolis. It was probably 25 years ago. And I walked in and it was called the camel exhibit. And it was just a bunch of camel legs that had been cut off. And I was like, it ruined me for looking at modern art. I'm sure I'm mistaken to some degree, but that just looks like the modern life of so many young people in our world today. It's squiggly lines going everywhere with no direction. We're talking with Bobby Angel in his new book, The Postmodern Predicament. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick adventure. People love our EWTN TV show, Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. Thanks to you, the show has won 4 different Tally Awards. And now, instead of waiting each week for the next episode to air, you can actually binge watch our show and even share it with your friends when you go to deepadventure.com and join the Mama Bears or the Man Cave. Along with all the other benefits, you get total access to all the seasons of our aired episodes, plus instant access to episodes that won't even air for several months. Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick, a great way to communicate the gospel in a gritty enough way that even tough men will stop and watch at deepadventure.com. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Woznick adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Woznick adventure possible. Announcing Spirit Adventure TV with Bear and Cindy. So many people, especially you mama bears, tell us we want more of Bear and Cindy together. Well, we're happy to announce our website, spiritofadventuretv.com, as well as our YouTube channel, Bear Woznick Spirit of Adventure, where you can watch Spirit of Adventure TV with Bear and Cindy. Join us where we live in the Hawaiian Islands or where we sail our boat, the Spirit of Adventure, in the Caribbean. Experience both adventure and serenity with us as we share our life together, as well as the joy and the wisdom of our faith. Go to spiritofadventuretv.com to find out more and subscribe on YouTube to Bear Woznick Spirit of Adventure. And join us, Spirit of Adventure with Bear and Cindy.
Are you still listening? I thought we warned you to change to an easy listening station. Well, you asked for it. Here is more of the Bear Woznick adventure.
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Woznick adventure. Hey, you know what's a really tricky thing to do is to be a mama bear who knows her brother-in-law is coming over, and she turns on Prime Video and turns on Long Ride Home, the motorcycle show that we had on EWTN. They still air it here and there, but all 33 episodes are on Prime Video, and you can have that kind of in the background. And when your brother-in-law's, oh, some bikers, let's watch what these bikers are up to. And then they find out it's about Jesus. And then they find out, oh, it's Catholic. We have so many men that are members of the man cave that accidentally were walking through the room or flipping channels and saw that show. So Mama Bears, bring the men in your life to Long Ride Home on Prime Video. Long Ride Home with Bear. You got to say the with Bear, or might find other different things that are called Long Ride Home. We're speaking of Long Ride Homes. We have with us as a guest Bobby Angel. You know, Bobby, this has been a real powerful conversation about the postmodern predicament. What is it that what is my personal predicament, finding myself in this era? What is it? What happens to the person listening right now, or to our conversation? What is the predicament that person is finding themselves in?
You're finding yourself in a very tribalistic world. If God has been jettisoned, we all have to worship something. For some people, that's health and nutrition and fitness. For some people, it's CrossFit or veganism. For others, it's politics. For a lot of people, it's politics. Like, politics stops just being something and it becomes the most important thing. And it becomes the thing we fight over, we can't agree on, therefore we can't be friends, we can't be family anymore. And so this very picking sides without any kind of sense of we're walking in the same direction. We can even agree on what is good, true, or beautiful. So it is this profoundly confusing time. I think where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. So there's always reason to hope. Like, there's a lot of good philosophy books out there. I wanted to write something that non-philosophers could hopefully understand and also walk away with hope. Like, how do we get here and what do we do about it? Knowing that Christ is King, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And there's been many generations before us that thought these were the end times. How could it get any worse? And yet the saints come up and show us creative ways to engage the times we're in.
And we were born into this time.
Yes.
I mean, before we were in our mother's womb, God says that He knew us, and we have to look at where we are, the confused state we may find ourselves in, the state of maybe failure or lack of momentum in our lives, and realize you were made for a time this time. You were born into this time, and this world needs you to rise to the calling that God has for you. You talk about a roadmap, which kind of gives us a sense again of that adventure, that journey that we're on. What a roadmap for recovery and restoration? What is that roadmap?
A lot of it is not rocket science. It is simply doing the things that we're called to do. And so, we mentioned art in the last segment, and that was one of the fastest ways I could get my students' attention, because I mostly taught theology. But a couple of the last years, I was teaching philosophy to the seniors, whose most pressing question was, is this on the test?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the most fast.
Will I need it? But here's the second question. Will I need this in real life? The answer is yes.
Well,
the second one.
Getting them to understand ideas have consequences. That made sense to them. And also showing them art from the Renaissance, Gothic cathedrals, showing them the artwork of old Europe, showing them then artwork of the last 100 years and architecture of the last 100 years, and just be like,
yeah,
it's like, what happened? And you can see it got really ugly. It got really messy and confusing.
Think of the Brooklyn Bridge. Think of the Brooklyn Bridge. So utilitarian, nothing,
There's so many government buildings you can point to. There's the banana duct taped to the wall. There's a toilet in a French museum. Like, and people, you were very kind in the previous segment of like, maybe I'm just not smart enough. Maybe I don't get it. But like there's a gut level of like, this is ugly. And that is the point, is that there is no beauty. And in some ways, art is educating us. Like, life is meaningless. Get over it. It's a banana duct taped to a wall. But there's
But you
something.
have to pay $1 million for that banana taped to the wall, so it must be mean something.
Well, yeah, I should be doing something different with my life. Um, reclaiming art and architecture. This is what, again, signs of hope. I see, particularly in church architecture, more and more parishes around the country mindful of, we need Jesus back in the center. We need to invest in beautiful artwork, churches that look like churches that are either like new builds or going through some kind of refurbishing of like, we're reclaiming sacred art because architecture is instructing us. Like, the building is teaching us either life is meaningless, you're just a cog in the machine, or we're made for beauty. My eye goes up,
Yes,
my eye gets
yes,
lost in the
yes.
beautiful.
I love Father Spitzer's newest book. One of some of his newest books, and one of them is The Soul's Upward Yearning. It
Mm.
talks about the desire for home, for truth, for justice, for beauty. Do you love Dr. Peter Kraft?
Yeah. So there's a whole shelf you can't see
Yeah.
that is all Peter
Yeah.
Kraft. So my
I
wife
love
and
I
I love his writings.
Yeah, we do too. I actually get to write letters to him, handwritten letters, because he doesn't want to correspond by email. And I got to
Right.
write a little letter. And of course, he's a surfer, so
Hmm.
have that in common. But I love his conversion was, go ahead, you wanted to say something. His
No,
conversion. Yeah.
he signed my copy of I Surf, Therefore I Am.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I've never got to meet him in person. I'd have to, but I've had him on my show and stuff. But he was converted because of beauty. And lately
Mm.
on the X site, that used to be Twitter, there's all these postings in my feed of the inside of these cathedrals. So many of them, you look at the outside and they look grandiose and big. But once you walk into this space that's defined by these walls, there's a feeling of being uplifted and expansion. And it seems like isn't it C.S. Lewis or was it G.K.? I think it was G.K. that said orthodoxy is the only thing that looks bigger when you're on the inside than it does from the outside. And and beauty was why Peter Kraft was converted from Protestantism. He walked into a cathedral and he said, "Dad, what's so bad? I think it was St. Patrick's, maybe. What's so bad about the Catholic Church if they could do this?"
Yeah, and so like any generation, a lot of people got caught up in what was fashionable of the 60s and 70s and 80s, and um thankfully there's kind of a reclaiming of like, no, actually the building matters and beauty matters and we need to invest in it. Um and I mean, probably the most unchurched generation we're seeing up and coming, like the nuns, the so-called nuns. And I taught some of them, very humble, like very like they don't know. Like, they're not rolling their eyes like, yeah, I've heard of God's love since I was in kindergarten, whatever. They're not the jaded Catholic school kid. It's like, what do you mean God loves me? Like, this is the fertile upturned soil that we can, be sad about the state of, like, we're not in Christendom anymore.
Hmm.
But how exciting that it's upturned soil, it's upturned manure for the gospel to grow in new ways. We have to get more creative. We have to respond to a very different time, not in the way we always did it.
Wait,
But it's
that
also like, this is why, again, beauty just kind of cuts through. Like, before we can get to like what is good or true, it's just like, isn't this beautiful?
that's so true. I was having coffee with someone, and we had the Bibles out, and a man walked by and goes, "I don't believe in that superstitious stuff." And my friend's response was to quote the Bible to him, which was not going to work,
Hmm.
right? I mean, he just told you he think that's a book of superstition. But I've always thought that the Catholic Church would be so good at reaching people today because of our ability to reason and to speak truth. But you've just shown me a whole new thing, and that is, well, how about beauty? You know, show them beauty. Where does that? How? What? I remember when I was a kid once driving over the Highway 17, Santa Cruz to the Bay Area. I was raised in Santa Cruz, and I asked my mom, "Can you explain to me? Tell me what beauty is, Mom." Because she'd say, look at how beautiful those mountains are. I go, I don't get it. What's beauty? I was probably like 7 years old. You can't explain it, but you know it when you see it. You know what, Bobby, we don't usually have guests on a second time, but man, I have really enjoyed talking with you, and we've already run out of time. Hopefully, maybe if you'd be open to, we could get you back just to have a conversation about so many things. I love your mentoring ministry and the way you think, and but we've already run out of time. So where can people find you?
JackieandBobby.com. The book is The Postmodern Predicament with Sophia Institute Press, which you can get at sophiainstitute.com or on Amazon. There is an audiobook I am working on in progress. It'll come out when it comes out. But it's I would love to be back on the show. It's such, it's such a rich topic, and it's such a rich time we're living in. Like, there's always reasons to kind of despair and bemoan, but there's always reasons to hope as well.
I would love to have a conversation just about that, what you would say to young people that are on the way. You know what? Yeah, we'll do that. I'll write you and we'll get you back on. I'd like to, it's hard to have a 40-minute conversation about something like this, but I think I agree with you about one thing, because when you first mentioned your wife, you said she was beautiful. And my wife is so beautiful. And I always say to her, son, honey, you're really pretty, but you're actually beautiful, because beauty is something from the inside that shines out. And that brings us back to this whole thing of beauty, that there's an upward yearning in man that desires beauty. So we'll scratch that surface and talk more about it when we have Bobby on again. Bobby Angel, what's your website again?
JackieandBobby.com. You can go to YouTube as well, and you'll see all of different videos from us from Ascension Press and other outlets.
It's awesome. Yeah. And a good friend of mine too, because my books are with Sophia. And when is, I shouldn't ask this because it's going to open up whole another thing, but when is your next album coming out? I see all those guitars behind you. Do you write music too?
Oh, you don't want me singing. They're my wife's. She's okay. We're knee deep in homeschooling. So she's got a few albums worth in her head. We just need time and silence.
Yeah, and my Audible book. Right after this, I'm going back in and doing a little bit of repair on my latest book, Audible, as soon as I'm done right now. But Bobby Angel, we've expended our time too long. Until next week, everyone, may the breath of the Holy Spirit aloha you. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Find more manly conversation at the Bear Woznick Deep Adventure YouTube channel. Subscribe and ring the bell.